Joining me now is France 24 journalist Wassim Nasr. Wassim, you have been keeping close watch on the operations of both the Israelis and Hamas militants, but I want to ask you just how far advanced is the Israeli military at the moment in Gaza? How much have they managed to achieve?
Well, actually, we're going to look at a map and we'll see the evolution on the ground of the military, Israeli military on the ground in northern Gaza. So all the areas we see in red are the areas that today are controlled by the Israeli military. And we see the evolution in the during this weekend and yesterday, next to the Indonesian hospital that you mentioned, the Rantisi hospital too, and in the middle of the northern part of Gaza, next to the parliament and to the military police offices. According to Israeli military sources, they said that more than 250 Hamas targets were hit just yesterday, meaning including operatives, rocket launchers, and Hamas infrastructure. What we can see on this map is it is evolving in a normal way. It's not too fast, it's not too slow, according to the situation and according to the dense civilian areas that fighting is occurring inside.
So what are the military tactics being used by both sides?
We're going to see footage from both sides, actually. We're going to begin with the Israeli forces in Jabalia that you just mentioned, knowing that Jabalia was not totally evacuated. Many civilians, thousands, are still living in Jabalia. And here we see foot soldiers, Israeli foot soldiers, evolving around the Jabalia, what is known as the Jabalia camp, because when you say camp, it's not tents, it's buildings actually, because those camps exist since like more than 50 years. And here we see they are evolving from one building to another. The use of tanks is still being made, but it gets less and less efficient when you go into streets. And we're going to look at the footage from Ashati camp. Ashati camp is also called a camp, but it's buildings, as you know, and it's another footage. So actually it was the last dot or the last spot that was left, here it is, by the Israeli forces before encircling Gaza City from the seaside. And here you see that the fighting is much more intense, much more difficult. Tanks evolve much in a harder way, and it is there's a big risk for infantry, for foot soldiers, to go into those buildings that could be booby trapped, where Hamas operatives are still operating from one floor to another. And one important thing that we saw in the last hours is, and here is Hamas footage, we saw that 3 Hamas operatives attacked the positions of the Israeli army in the Rantisi hospital. And here you go. And they were qualified by Hamas itself as istishhadis, as suicide bombers. But the thing is that Hamas dropped this modus operandi since 2008. So it would be a first since 15 years where they go back to this mode of operation, knowing that this kind of attack happened in May 2008. It was the Islamic Jihad against the Hurayz passage from Gaza towards Israel. So it is very important to see if they are going back to this modus operandi, if they were actually suicide bombers, if they were people who put bombs and stayed, or people who fought till the end, as we used to say a few years back, fidaiyin, the days of the PLO or other factions. We have another footage of Hamas too, where we see how they confront military vehicles in the streets. So here you see a couple of shooters with copies of RPG-7 Tandem, meaning they have 2 explosive heads, one head to open the way to another, which could hit inside of the tanks. So you see from the floors, as we said, from upside, from the corners of the streets. And here the dilemma for the Israeli military is when you make tanks evolve alone, you have this kind of outcome. So here we see a Hamas operative putting the same kind of explosive on the tank and activating it manually, meaning this way he is sure that it's gonna make casualties and it's gonna cause a big harm to the tank. We'll see another footage where the same explosive were put in an inappropriate way, and you'll see it. So here you have another Hamas operative. Those were the first days of the ground operation of the Israelis, and he'll put the same kind of explosive, but look at it. So the blast will go on the sides, meaning the tank wasn't harmed at all.
Now, we're clearly having a war of images as well. So how much can we trust what either side is broadcasting or sharing with the public?
It's a very interesting point, and we'll see, we should understand too, that each hit each rocket hitting a tank doesn't mean that the tank or the vehicle is being destroyed. And we'll see some footage. So it's what we see on the left is explosions next to a Merkava 4 tank. What we see on the right is a Merkava tank protected by a system trophy, called Trophy, made by Rafael. It's a military industry in Israel. And actually it provokes small explosions to prevent RPGs or to prevent more ATGMs, more advanced weaponry to hit the tank. But this kind of protection makes it hard for infantry to be around the tank, because when it's activated, it could kill its own soldiers. So we go back to what I described as the dilemma for the military, Israeli military. But the thing is that the footage shown by Hamas doesn't go all the way to see the tank destroyed. It could be understandable because they cannot stay to make the footage, because they could be shot at by other Israeli vehicles. But still, as we speak, we don't have proof of how many tanks, how many vehicles were damaged by Hamas. And another way, when we look at Israeli footage, for example, of capturing Hamas rockets that we see here. So what we see here is a Hamas rocket captured by the Israeli military, but actually it's not a rocket which was made to be launched. Those are models of rockets that used to be paraded, as we see, by Hamas operatives in former military parade inside Gaza. So, but the Israeli does not say the rocket, was it made to be shot, or was it just for a parade? So here we are at the fog of war, and there's no journalists on the ground. So we have to look at this with very much scrutiny.
And that's where verification is absolutely crucial. Thank you very much, Wassim Nazir.